Hi everybody, thanks for coming to the live cast. I'm Ezra Parzubak. I help people understand marijuana. And I live in Massachusetts where we've legalized the adult use of cannabis, and this means many things to many people across the state. And towns, the people who run towns, the people who make decisions in towns have to decide and implement these new marijuana establishments, which will come out in the state and which will be here. And I predict will be actually a very quiet rollout. This will be a respectful addition to the business community in Massachusetts. But I wanted to send this video to towns and provide people with information that I feel is unbiased and helpful in for towns to implement these licensed marijuana establishments. So I actually primarily do medical marijuana. I advise patients, and I really believe strongly in the medicinal uses of cannabis. I'm a conservative user when it comes to that, and proponent of cannabis, and really believe that done properly it can be helpful for so many people, which ultimately we want to do in order to reduce opiates. Opiates are a pain medication that can be harmful to communities, and cannabis is an alternative, proven effective analgesic. It is can reduce pain. So that's why I believe that Massachusetts voted in favor of the law, and it's important to implement it in towns. So first of all, it's important for towns to know that zoning and licensing and rules and regulations have been thoroughly thought out on the state level, and that no dispensary and no retail shop or any kind of licensed entity can get up and running in a town without the town being intimately involved and implementing themselves all of the regulations, or checking off on all the ways that your establishment is going to follow the state regulations. So the state has provided a very solid framework, and I encourage anyone in towns to just Google Massachusetts adult use marijuana regulations, and you will find what the state has written. It's nearly 100 pages, very important and very stringent laws around cannabis. And towns do have to, create special permits. Towns have to sometimes change their bylaws in order for certain establishments or industrial areas to be retrofitted or provide for or just be inhabited by these establishments, these LMEs, they're called licensed marijuana establishments. So one benefit to towns is that there has to be a host agreement, a town host agreement, which is the town essentially and the entity, the LME, working out a percentage of gross profits of that business that goes to the town in order to implement anything that the town has to do out of its budget to get these dispensaries up and running, the LMEs up and running. And so if $1 million business wants to start in your town, say a cultivator wants to start a business in your town, that's going to be a inside grow, typically inside of an industrial building in your town. They may be $1 million business every year. That's pretty moderate for industry, a $1 million business a year, but that could mean as much as $30,000 that is given to the town if this cultivator can be up and running. And that town would never see that marijuana. It would be delivered to other towns that have legalized retail shops. So it's important to understand that as a town, you have control, and you can have conversations with people in the industry, with legislatures, and come to agreements with these LMEs, these entities, about what level of production they're going to do and what they can implement within the boundaries of your town, and that it can be a positive financial impact on the town without anyone having to see what they do or access their building or interact with the entity on anything but a professional level. So, the towns or the entities, these LMEs, also have to have an outreach meeting. So this is so that people in the community can ask questions and really debate and talk about and hear exactly what their plan is of the LME before they permit it in the town. So many towns in Massachusetts have created a moratorium. They just don't want to talk about it, don't want to allow anything in their town. But it's important for towns to realize that they have a lot of power in this situation. If they say no to any establishments in their town limits, they are preventing economic opportunity, jobs, and often the renewal of buildings that can be abandoned or might be in blighted areas. So it's my objective opinion that it is a loss for a town to say we should have a complete moratorium on cannabis industry, because they have to really look at the facts and see what towns can do to make sure this industry is very conservative and very appropriate for that town. So I encourage people in towns to get educated. I work with a network of accountants and legal counsel and business development people to help implement teams and to talk to towns and to make sure that the rollout of this industry is not only smooth and appropriate, but is helpful to communities, that creates a net benefit for communities. I live in the community. I live in Northampton and Florence, and have 2 kids. And so I'm in this community, and I want it to be a healthy, proper rollout. But there's so much that towns can do to learn, and I encourage people to reach out. Thanks for the live cast, for attending, and see you next week.